gentlemen, to your replacement. Come on down, Jerry the King Lawler.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications. And once you're done, leave a comment down below and I just might end up responding. While Saudi Arabia and old, horny are definitely up there, the two words I'd associate most with Vincent Kennedy McMahon would have to be, "You're fired." You're fired.
About the only thing I can say to you here tonight is, Donald Trump, yeah!
McMahon and company have been using their authoritarian advantage over the roster for decades now. Push the powers that be too far, and they'll push you right out of a job. Thanks for coming. See ya. Bye. Some of these firings are completely in storyline, but not all of them were, so that should keep things interesting. I'm D. Wicker from Watch WWE, and here's 10 wrestlers who were fired on live television. Number 10. Eric Bischoff. I tried finding some interesting variants instead of just Vince repeating those famous two words over and over again. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our first entry. Garbage truck has entered the chat. Yo, what the hell is happening? During the controversies of Eric Bischoff's 2003 run as general manager of Raw, a trial was held to determine whether or not he'd get to keep his job. Now, I've yet to make my debut as a juror and make my way to the courthouse, but I would bet bottom dollar people being found guilty, even for murder, are not being hoisted onto their next life via literally a garbage truck. WWE is so weird.
Let's go, Bischoff! You gotta be kidding me! Put him in the garbage!
Number 9, Jeffrey Jarrett. Probably the most surprising name to ever make his return to WWE, not named Bret Hart. J.E., worst nickname ever. Jarrett here played the system pretty damn well back in the day. Noticing his contract was coming up and that no one was approaching him for a re-sign, then IC champ Jarrett managed to hassle $300,000 out of Vince McMahon just to get his IC title back. When WWE purchased WCW back in 2001, in literally the first opening Vince ever had to address WCW fans, he made it very clear how likely a future JEFF had there, while simultaneously making fun of that ridiculous nickname.
That would be capital G, double O, double N, double E. Gone.
Number 8, Vince McMahon. For someone who tends to do all the firing around here, he sure knows how to get fired himself. The Vince is out of here storyline has been done a good few times, and at least once with every single heel authority figure ever, but the one that sticks out the most is oddly from 2011. Vince McMahon's fall from on-screen grace began when Triple H, COO himself by this point, joined his father-in-law in the ring to let him know he'd been fired. The switch was really just to get Vince off television, as the Mr. McMahon character supposedly ended after his Bret Hart match the year prior at WrestleMania, and there's no reason for him to still be on TV. Unfortunately, this one was very much storyline.
I am here to inform you that, Vince, you are relieved of your duties.
Number 7, Jim Ross. Ross has realistically been fired more than anyone else in wrestling. He bounced between WWF and WCW throughout their feud before settling in WWE, where he'd still occasionally find himself out of work. For example, in 2014, during one of those 2K game press releases, which Ross had been in charge of, Ric Flair decided to show up to the panel completely wasted. His son had recently passed away, and really, Rick had no business being there, but the blame fell on Jim, so he took the brunt and found himself out of a job.
And I should have been better than I was. So I dropped the ball, and I should have handled it a little bit better, and I didn't. And you pay for your penance.
Number 6, Sabu. One of the top names in all of ECW history, Sabu was a legend for his time, a hardcore innovator, and probably the best Daredevil-esque performer of the era. Sabu did, unfortunately, seem to have some occasional participation issues, i.e., he'd occasionally no-show an event or two. Paul Heyman got fed up with this behavior, and I believe the third time Sabu decided not to show up, Paul decided to stop giving Sabu calls. A fairly simple concept with valuable life lessons for all you kids out there. Follow through with commitments, especially when the person you're screwing over is Paul Heyman, advocate for a walking mountain that could bite your soul off.
If you're not going to be in the arena, if you're going to f*** the audience that made you a star in this country, let me know.
Number 5, Daniel Bryan. One of the most infamous firings of this entire decade came at the very start of it. Back in summer 2010, a young band of black and yellow covered boys made their way through the crowd to interrupt a match between John Cena and CM Punk. Immediate heel points because how dare you kill Magic. One of these black and yellows, soon to realize their nexus boys, was a young Daniel Bryan, and he'd quickly find his way out of work after choking out Justin Roberts with his tie. Now, according to Bryan, they were told to go out there and cause as much chaos, mayhem, and destruction as possible. So he did. And according to Roberts, he and everyone else involved thought it had all gone well. Everyone backstage was happy. The people in attendance weren't freaking out, and no one called in. So, like, why did he get fired again?
And they would chant for Daniel, and you got him fired, and people would yell at me.
I was going to ask you that if you took any heat for that.
Yeah, I took a lot of heat.
Number 4, Cody. Retirement matches. That's a pretty horrifying concept, huh? Having to risk it all in one final match, and if you come up even just a hair short, you are done for good. That's it, nighty-night. I actually wrote the words nighty-night. Cut me out of this video. Cody was fending off the Authority in 2013, so naturally, they used said Authority to throw Cody Rhodes in a match against former Evolution running buddy Randy Orton, with Rhodes' job being on the line. Cody came up just a bit short. He couldn't get it done, so like his brother before him around the same time, he found himself out of a kayfabe job at the hands of the Game.
Parting words? Yeah, sure. Randy Orton beat me fair and square. That's what happened. He was the better man. I lost. That happens.
Slingshot himself down. That's not the right word. Webbed. Webbed his way down. Number 3, John Cena. John Cena retiring. Yeah, okay. WWE tried really hard to make people believe it was legit, though. Like, really hard. Back in 2010, during the aforementioned Nexus storyline, Wade Barrett beat John in one of those retirement matches, and per stipulation, John Cena had to retire. John Cena, retiring from WWE. In 2010. Obviously, this was never even close to really happening, and he'd find himself back on TV literally the next week. Are you serious? But John decided to go full Mark Henry and really tried selling a grand retirement speech. And man, does John Cena know how to talk too much sometimes.
Thank you for allowing idiots like me to come out and live this wonderful, wonderful dream. All of this is because of you.
Number 2, Chavo Guerrero. Ah, yes, my favorite firing story. In 2013, TNA, hey, it's TNA, decided to try taking a swing at WWE's Money in the Bank concept. Instead of fighting for one briefcase, however, TNA's Feast or Fired sees multiple briefcases, and, well, you heard the words I said. I'm going to assume you're able to figure out the rest. It came time for the briefcase revealings, and Chavo was up, and when he went to open his case, a look of genuine confusion springs up because no one had told him he would get a fired briefcase. And then that was the last we ever saw of Chavo Guerrero in TNA, because this is legitimately how they fired a man. Oh, TNA.
Don't forget, just like you said, you are a Guerrero. This isn't the end. Hey!
And number 1, Paul Heyman. The Invasion storyline saw plenty of firing since, well, you basically doubled your roster right there. Throughout the story, Paul Heyman had gotten thrown into the commentary booth alongside Jim Ross, a very unhappy Jim Ross. Wow, Jim Ross really hated dealing with Paul Heyman inside that booth. Ross is amazing at selling his disgust, and every single thing coming out of Heyman's mouth brought disdain out of Ross's. Towards the end of the angle and things are finally getting back to normal, Vince decides to come out and announce that one more person still had to go. Security guards came out, they grabbed Paul Heyman and escorted him to the back while a giggly Jerry Lawler made his way onto the ramp as his replacement, pointing and laughing at poor old Paul. You're right, John Oliver. Wrestling is better than the things you like.
Let me introduce you, Mr. Heyman, to your replacement. Come on down, Jerry the King Lawler.
And those are 10 wrestlers who were fired on live television. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below. After liking the video, subscribe to the channel, notifications, ring that bell.
Screw you! You're fired! You're fired! You're fired! You're fired! Kurt Angle, You're fired!
Whoa! All right! Oh, my